you have written the date, and then patterns, consolidation. We are soon ending off with patterns. Then you draw a line, and we are going to do some examples together. The first example that we are going to do is number 1, y equals 3x plus 2. Remember, you don't need to know the formula, so I've also written the rule in brackets. You write the following in grey pencil and then in color. Rule times 3 plus 2. So remember, if the 3 and the x is standing next to each other, it means multiply and then you add 2. I've now given you the rule, and now we are going to complete a table. So please draw the following table. We are going to use 2 lines again. We have our x values, our input, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 10, 25 and 100. You can also make color stars next to 10, 25 and 100 because I just want to draw your attention to these numbers since they don't follow on 5. The first 5 numbers all follow onto each other. It's easy to work out the pattern, but then suddenly there's a jump to 10, 25 and 100. So be awake. Always look at especially the last digits. Now we have to apply the rule. So we say 1 times 3 is 3 plus 2 will give me 5. 2 times 3 is 6 plus 2 gives me 8. And we are going to complete the table. 3 times 3 is 9 plus 2, 11. 4 times 3 is 12 plus 2, 14. 3 times 5 is 15 plus 2 gives me 17. 10 times 3 gives me 30 plus 2, 32. And then 25 times 3 is 75 plus 2 gives me 77. And 100 times 3 is 300 plus 2, 302. You can now complete this table, and please make sure you write all the y values, all the outputs in color. Our second example, you write y equals x plus 3. If there's nothing in front of the x, it means it's times 1. And if you times anything by 1, the answer stays the same. So you leave that out. The rule will then either be times 1 plus 3, or it will just be plus 3. The table, the x values, inputs will be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Then I go to 15, 50, 100 and 1000. So these last values can really be anything. Please draw this table, and then we will use the rule again to determine the outputs. 1 plus 3 gives me 4, 2 plus 3, 5, 3 plus 3, 6. So you see I don't use the times 1 since I know the answer will stay the same. 4 plus 3, 7, 5 plus 3, 8, 15 plus 3, 18, 50 plus 3, 53, 100 plus 3 is 103, and then 1000 plus 3 will give me 1003. How did we get to that? Do you see the constant difference between these outputs? Stays 1, so you multiply by 1. If you do multiply by 1, you get 1, and you need 3 more. If you multiply this by 1, you get 2, you need 3 more. So that's why it's only plus 3. Make sure you've drawn this table in your book and you have written the answers in color. For the third example, I want us to draw a pattern. So you will see this is an octagon, and you use 8 lines to draw the octagon. For the second step, you add 7 to the octagon because you are sharing one of the lines. And then for the last step, you add another 7. Just count all the lines you used. For the first step, you used 8. Then you added 7. So for step 2, you have 15 lines. Or for the third step, you added 7 again. So 15 plus 7 gives you 22. These sketches can just be roughly drawn, as long as you've got the correct amount of lines and that your shape more or less looks like an octagon. Since we now have the pictures, let's do our table. So we've got our x values. We're going to use 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 10, 15, 20, 50 and 100. So you can start drawing your table so long. Before we can work out the y values, we have to look at the, yes, you're right, constant difference. So we know step 1 is 8, we know step 2 is 15, and we know step 3 is 22. The pictures tell us that. What is the constant difference between 8 and 15 and 15 and 22? 7. So we know if the constant difference is 7, we have to multiply by 7. If I do multiply 1 by 7, I don't get 8, I only get 7. So what must I do to get 8? I must add 1. Let's check. If I have 2 times 7, it gives me 14. I need 15, so I can add 1 again. It looks like our rule for number 3 will then be times 7 plus 1. So let's complete the table. We know the first 3, so you write that in grey pencil, 8, 15 and 22. And from number 4, we use our rule and we work out our answers. 4 times 7 gives us 28, plus 1 is 29. 5 times 7 is 35, plus 1 is 36. 10 times 7 is 70, plus 1, 71. 15 times 7 is 105, plus 1 gives me 106. 20 times 7 is 140, plus 1 gives me 141. 50 times 7 gives me 350, plus 1, 351. And then 100 times 7 gives me 700, plus 1 gives me 701. All these answers from number 4 onwards, I want you to write in color. And then afterwards, if we use the rule times 7 plus 1, the formula will then be y equals 7x plus 1. Please write both of these examples below the table. To recap, we've used the rule to complete a table. We have used pictures or a diagram to draw a table and work out a rule. And now we are going to do something different. Now we are going to start with a table. And we are not going to work out the output values, but the input values. So please draw the following table in your books. It's number 4, and you have an x value of 1, 2, 3, and 4. And then you have y values of 2, 6, 10, 14, 18, 38, 198, 398. So you will see there are some x values, some inputs missing. We still have to work out the rule, so the constant difference between the output values 2 to 6, 6 to 10, 10 to 14, etc. will be 4. If our constant difference is 4, it means we must multiply with 4. If we do multiply 1 by 4, we get 4. But we need 2. So we can't add for our second calculation. We need to subtract. We need to subtract 2. Let's test. 2 times 4 is 8. Minus 2 gives me 6. 3 times 4 is 12. Minus 2 gives me 10. So the rule we will be using, times 4 minus 2. This is the rule that we use to determine the y values. But we don't have to determine the y values. We need to determine the 4 missing input values. Let's use what we have. We have some digit which is multiplied by 4, and then 2 is subtracted from it, and then we get 18. So how would I now work out this unknown value? I have to use inverse calculation. So that means 18 plus 2 gives me 20. And what is the inverse calculation of times 4? Yes, divide by 4. So 18 plus 2 gives me 20. Divided by 4 gives me 5. Let's test our answer. 5 times 4 is 20. Minus 2 gives me 18. So let's do the next one. We have 38. We again have an unknown input, which was timed by 4 minus 2. So let's do the inverse calculation, working from the right side to the left side. 38 plus 2 gives me 40. Divided by 4 gives me 10. Let's test. 10 times 4 is 40. Minus 2 gives me 38. Please see if you can do the last two on your own, and then we will double check our answers. There is the answers. We've done 5, we've done 10 with our calculations. Did you get to 50 and 100? So let's see, I had 198, added 2 to get 200, divided by 4 gives me 50. I had 398 plus 2 gives me 400, divided by 4 gives me 100. You can write the formula y equals 4x minus 2, and then the rule in brackets was times by 4 minus 2. But remember, we did not use this because we worked out the input values. Below the rule, I want you to draw a little arrow and then write the inverse calculation. So you write there plus 2 divided by 4. And then in brackets, inverse to determine the input. So then you know we used an inverse calculation to work out the input values.